is becoming a regular guest, Martin Albert. He also gave a talk at the first Bitcoin conference, and at the second, a colleague of yours was speaking. So now I guess you're talking about your experience as a Bitcoin startup.
It really is a surprise.
Yeah. Okay. So please, a big applause for Martin Albert.
Welcome everyone. My name is Martin. Actually, I live in Finland. Just came here the long way to Amsterdam because our project is basically located in Germany, so it's not so far away. And also, if I recap the whole day yesterday, yesterday we have heard a lot of lawyers and people talking about what is Bitcoin and is it like money or is it not money? How should it be treated? And I will now try to give you a bit different perspective. Because in my opinion, 90% of even Bitcoin people get Bitcoin completely wrong, why it was invented. And even if you read the white paper, it was really meant to disrupt the whole financial system. It was not meant to be integrated in any way. And still everybody is trying to push it somehow. This is the definition and we need to have these rules and these rules. And so the question is now, where is now Bitcoin? Where does it have a potential for a real currency? And from that point of view, all of you all started somehow without knowing about Bitcoin because it was a new technology. So you all started to read about it, and if you Google it for the first time, you read something, you can trade money with a computer, it doesn't sound very logically. But you keep digging and you realize it's decentralized, it's peer-to-peer, you don't need any third party, you don't need any banks to be involved, and you think that's really great, I want to read more about this, and it's super secure, you're working with encryption and no one can crack the private key when he has a public key, and it's really cool. You can make an anonymous, more or less anonymous transaction all around the world, no one can stop you from doing so. But then of course, even when you are very convinced from this kind of technical system, you still have this question, so what? Because also I think yesterday we also discussed the problem for what can you now do with it? And why are people actually using Bitcoin? So we had yesterday the nice presentation, all the EasyChat and so on, because not many people really need Bitcoin for saving transaction fees, and not really many people need Bitcoin to actually go to a shop to buy something, because you can buy everything already right now. So you don't need Bitcoin for that, and also for staying anonymous. If you go to the shop, when you pay with cash, that's the same level of anonymity than using Bitcoin for something. And even for whatever, doing some trading or some speculation, you can also do some trading and speculation with whatever grain certificates or whatever. You don't need Bitcoin to invent, to speculate for some price fluctuations. And even for whatever this kind of drug, money laundering thing, this all worked perfectly fine. Osama bin Laden, he did not need any Bitcoin to crash some towers. So it's not like this is any incentive to use Bitcoin for that. And so if you really dig into it, what is the real difference is because Bitcoin is something outside of the normal financial system. And because it's your own money, so you are the one creating it with some mining process, it's just an agreement of value. The same thing as gold is just yellow stones, and people agree that it's a kind of object of value and you can exchange it, and you are the one in control. So that's basically the core difference from Bitcoin to all the other kind of payment systems or whatever is involved in the fiat system. Okay, I just see the slides are a bit cut because of, it's not on my computer, so maybe it's from the Mac.
Yeah, I think it's a difference in because this is also LibreOffice.
Okay, this was still fine, but okay, this should be problem.
It is.
Problem. And we have heard yesterday.
Maybe it's just the projector.
No, it's also here on the screen. Okay, I will translate when there's some missing part. So the first problem, what we have heard yesterday, regulation. You have always these kind of politicians. They just gave themselves the right to initiate violence against you when you don't comply to any rule they impose on you. So they put a lot of rules, like here, this is money, you can only interact with other people by paying your VAT, by doing this, and especially when you go into this kind of business. I mean, here you see very happy people doing some payment in a restaurant. And you see with Bitcoin, this is never the case like this, because if you are some kind of business owner, you have huge trouble. You need to define what is my VAT rule, what do I have to do with that, and I need to have maybe some money transmitting license, I have to report my profit and loss in Bitcoin, and I need to evaluate the Bitcoin price to some euro price, and it's a huge mess. And then also if you have this kind of very simple example, some kind of coffee shop, okay, this has different meaning in the Netherlands. But if you have this kind of a normal restaurant or something and you want to pay with Bitcoin, what happens in practice is you have to very complicatedly buy some kind of Bitcoin via some shady exchange in the internet, and then you have somehow to store it on your mobile phone with some very strange application, and then you have to go to the shop, the guy has to accept it somehow, so the employees don't know what to do with it, you have to scan some QR code, and just for buying a coffee, you have already 5 steps. Yeah. And then the guy anyway, he has to pay his coffee. He said he doesn't order coffee for some Bitcoin supplier, so he anyway has to buy the coffee for Bitcoin. And so in the end, he anyway has to pay his taxes, and he has to change the Bitcoins back to fiat, and then you have 5 kind of transactions in between, and all this kind of low transaction fee Bitcoin thing is with all the exchange fees. From even when BitPay, they all do it for free, but still you have this kind of friction between all this changing back and forth, and you have to store it in the middle, and the Bitcoin price is fluctuating, and the guy doesn't know which rate to take, and so it's really a big. So what I called Peter, it's like a big pain in the ass. Yeah, it's simply how it is. So it's a marketing gag when you have a business to accept Bitcoin. You can say, I'm accepting Bitcoin, and you've got to list the Bitcoin inventory, and some nerd people come and pay. It's all fun, but it's not this kind of real purpose of the currency of Bitcoin, because it doesn't make any sense, because you change back and forth, and you're highly regulated, you have to do so many VAT problems to solve, and it's like even starting a business is already nearly impossible nowadays. And on the other hand, you have the second side of the equation. You have the so-called individual user. So if I, as an individual, I just go to a city center, I just take my mobile, I just send you 1 Bitcoin, who cares? There's no regulation involved. I don't need a license to send someone a Bitcoin. Even if I would need one, I wouldn't care. There is no VAT. If I do some kind of private use of Bitcoin, there is no VAT requirements, and no one cares about money laundering when I just send Bitcoins to someone. Maybe there are some rules applicable or so, but no one cares. And even if there are the toughest rules, like Bitcoin is illegal, who would stop me from using it on my private phone? There's no way to stop it, because unless you put a police officer behind every citizen to check if he has the Bitcoin app installed on his phone, I'm perfectly free to use it. And also for my private tax declaration, I mean, of course, we have some rules you need in the Netherlands. You need to put it in chapter 3 of your tax declaration if you made some Bitcoin profit. But the question is, what happens when you don't? There's no real enforcement unless you volunteer to, or you have maybe some transaction in the bank account in the fiat system. Then, of course, you can have some tracks. But if you just use Bitcoin, there's no traceability for any third parties. Even when he has a blockchain or whatever, he needs to dig in, like, which address belongs to whom, and it's a huge effort, and I just send 5 Bitcoins to my neighbor, who cares? But then, of course, the question is, why do you need Bitcoin? If I want to give someone 10 euros, I can also do it with fiat. So there is not the purpose. But then, of course, and this is where, in my opinion, the future of Bitcoin lies, and this is during this startup phase where Bitcoin is still growing. Because then you have this kind of group in the middle. You have, let's say, that businesses are super regulated. They can't really use Bitcoin. You have the private people who don't have any real incentive to use Bitcoin because it's just a personal relationship. But then you have this huge market of so-called private business. And I just also want to show what kind of impact this is. So if you look at about Uber, taxi driving app or this kind of Airbnb. There's a huge discussion about it because everybody is has the possibility to offer something as a kind of private business. And there's a huge protest because you have all these kind of alleged taxi license holders who fear competition, they want to prevent it. And of course this is nothing particular for Bitcoin at this point because Uber, they all work with euros or with dollars, and but it's a kind of just to show what kind of business areas are somehow unregulated. Because this Uber is the best example. Those are people who are doing some kind of business, but they don't have any license because they are not allowed to do this. And still, it's being done. It's just a mobile app on the phone, and everybody can drive around someone. He can take some money, and he doesn't pay taxes in most cases. He doesn't have the permit to do so. Or, for example, in Berlin, in Germany, it's illegal to rent out your apartment to strangers for money. It's simply not allowed. And you can even be fined, go to jail or whatever. But if you go to the Airbnb website, you will be surprised how many offers you will find. Like you find more Airbnb private offers than hotels. And then of course, this is where basically Bitcoin has a real chance because with because the money transfer is also not taking place directly, that you have to hand over cash, but you can have the value transfer outside of this kind of taxi or outside of the lodging, and you can have some kind of trusted network, so when some kind of a secret detective is smuggling into the system, and you can simply say, no, you don't have a reputation here on this platform, and you can filter all these people out, and there would be nothing to stop these kind of services in the future. And especially with Bitcoin, you can then also separate the payments from the actual service. You can have an escrow in the middle because you're also doing business with strangers. So if you're driving around someone, the person taking the kind of lodging or this taxi service, he doesn't know if the guy is maybe a drunk driver. And the driver doesn't know if the guy is maybe a potential thief who just wants to hijack the car or so. So you have some kind of trust issue also. And with Bitcoin and everything, you can really put someone in the middle who can also take trust of everything.
But can't the whole thing of Airbnb and Uber be heavily discouraged? For example, in regards to that trust issue, right? Can't the controlling instances, for example, just go to those addresses which are renting it out, or just go to those illegal cab drivers and just find them? Because that's what happens here.
Yes, of course, but the good thing is, of course, when you are handing over the cash, then you have immediate proof the guy was paid. When you do some kind of blockchain transfer, which is done by some escrow mechanism outside of the system, you can simply say I didn't pay the guy. And okay, but that's basically just to show the principal thing. So, I mean, you have of course a regulation problem, but the problem can easily be solved by just let's say a civil disobedience in the sense of you can have the best laws to prevent this, but it's just a matter of the individual to say, okay, I don't accept this law, or I don't think this is like a valid law for me, and you can still, you don't even have to do it as a business, you can just do it as some kind of cost reimbursement, and but just to show some kind of use case of Bitcoin. When you then have this first problem, of course, solved, then you still have the second big problem in the Bitcoin community. Because you have the so-called control problem of Bitcoins. I think we discussed yesterday in detail. Of course, you have this kind of bank problem. The bank takes always the role of some kind of third party. And just to show the example how it is currently solved. Of course, even right now, you don't really need banks. You can have everything cash under the matrix, and you can just take your banknotes. You have cash under the matrix, and you have all your assets cash.
Yes.
And assume there's no euro crash or whatever, it's perfectly okay. But the question is, what can you do with it? I mean, cash under the matrix, I can go to the bakery and pay cash. I can go maybe to the whatever local coffee shop and and pay in cash, that's all fine. But as soon as I want to use some online service, I have a huge problem. I cannot make my cash transaction over the internet. And so again, what happens then? Of course, I always need some kind of payment provider bank. And that's then, of course, the big problem. Because once I have the bank involved, I have to give up control over the money. So then, even when I'm the owner of the money, I don't have control. And then the bank takes custody of it, and even when we don't have any fractional reserve. So just imagine the bank would still just have 100% reserve. They still would be fully in control of the money, which is actually your money. And no matter how secure the system is, the bank can always say, stop, no, you don't get your money back anymore. For whatever reason, because you're bankrupt, because we don't want to give it to you, because you do some shady business, because you whatever, the government,
money laundering,
suspicion of money laundering, because whatever. And
will buy bitcoins.
well, what happens actually, because when, for example, someone collects money from you, they never go to you to collect the money. They always go to the bank to take the money directly from the bank. So they just go with some kind of title to the bank and explain, Martin, he owes us money, but they never ask me to pay them. They just go to the bank and say, okay, zack, we can just take it from there. And this is of course why we all went into Bitcoin, because we don't need third parties. We can do everything our own, we can keep our funds in our mobile wallet or whatever. But then of course, with Bitcoin, the problem is actually not solved. I just want to mention names like Mt. Gox. I mean, of course, you can have your bitcoins offline in a super secure private key. That's all very nice. But then again, once you want to do something with the bitcoins, like you want to do some trading, you want to exchange it somehow, you want to use it on some service provider website, you have the same problem again. So you just exchange the bank and you just put some kind of Bitcoin exchange, for example, as the opposite. And then you have again a centralized service. You send your Bitcoins to some service which is even less regulated than banks.
They might get hacked.
Yes, they might get hacked, they might close overnight. I mean, we discussed all these problems. And then the question is why do I use Bitcoins? Because you have the same problem again. You need again some kind of service provider who takes control over your money, and you are dependent on this service provider. And this is the case for 99% of all service providers in Bitcoin space. You always have a centralized website where you have to send the Bitcoins to, and they can do whatever they want. And of course, I mean, Bitstamp, they always did some kind of proof of reserves, and they make once a year an audit, but you never know. They can always trick the system. They can just ask a friend to make some transaction to prove that they have some money, and they can still lose them. And even when they are very trustworthy in the past, you cannot say this is the same case for the future. And just to show this in some kind of picture, in practice, when two people want to go into some trade, in practice it works now currently like this. You have one person having some kind of Bitcoin and another person having, for example, the US dollar or something, or it can be some product, it doesn't matter. And both want to make the exchange. And currently, it works like this. Both people have to send the fiat money into some centralized provider and the Bitcoin to some centralized provider. The centralized provider does some kind of mixing, exchanges it according to the rules of the exchange, and then it just goes back to the users. And then you have again, everything is going by a central bank account, and even the Bitcoins have to go via some central server. And of course, you can always withdraw immediately after you did your trade, but then the problem is when you want to do active trading and you are some kind of day trader or something, you cannot just always put everything in offline wallet and then you have the opportunity, I need six block confirmations, and then I can start trading. So in practice, most traders have some kind of balance somewhere, or when they want to buy some product or whatever, it doesn't matter. And then again, I have this nice octopus. What does the octopus have to do? They just have already everything in a central place, and they can simply grab it And it's not only whatever, some kind of hacker or something, it's also some kind of malicious site administrator, it is some kind of government who can simply say, okay, this kind of activity, we don't want to do this, and you can simply go to the central place and take out not only the fiat money, but also the Bitcoin. And the question is, why do we need Bitcoin for this whole thing when we have the same problem again? When whatever enforcement or hackers or malicious site administrators can simply go again to the website and just take everything out. And yeah, of course, the question of course, what if it is possible that you would not have to give up control over your coins? Also, when, of course, not only when you have them in your private pocket somewhere, but also when they are online at the service at the same time. And but you wouldn't even allow any site administrator to take care of your coins, because you never know if you can trust them. Even if you could trust in the past, you don't know if it's the case in the future. And even when it's like the super trustworthy site administrators, you can see that hackers zero-day exploit or whatever, so there's lots of possibilities to steal coins. And it's very dangerous to have Bitcoin in that sense. And then of course, I mean, the question is, why would you need a service at all? Because of course you can already trade between person to person directly, but of course you always need some kind of escrow mechanism, because indeed you're doing business with strangers, so you need to make sure that no one can scam you. So you need to have some kind of a third party who can also do some kind of escrow in the middle. And of course the solution is some kind of, let's say, semi-decentralized service, where everybody is keeping his own money or whatever on his own bank account, and his Bitcoins in his own wallet, where only he has control about it. And then some kind of service provider just mitigates the exchange and provides an escrow in case someone is dying, in case someone is not fulfilling his part of the deal, and so on. And then all people can swap their trade. And when the good thing is then, when you have some kind of attack on the website, in whatever kind, like the service is closed, you can easily close down the service, you can close down the website, but you don't have any possibility anymore to go to the Bitcoin part or even go to the fiat part, because it's simply not there. I mean, closing down the website is very easy. I mean, you can simply close down the domain and that's it. But the critical part is always to keep the funds in. And then of course, now the question is, how can this be done? Because Bitcoin has the huge possibility that they offer very sophisticated